Good afternoon, everyone. This is the webinar entitled 2023 Advocacy Priorities. We do this once a year. Sort of changes because everything sort of changes in the industry on spectrum policy and regulatory policy. We're here at EWA's Herndon, Virginia offices. I'm Mark Crosby. I'm pleased to be the Chief Strategy Officer for Enterprise, which means I could do dang near anything I want with Robin's permission. The other presenters today, of course, are I'm going the wrong way. There we go. Robin Cohen, President, CEO, and Liz Sachs, Regulatory Counsel. Oh my God, when I was thinking about this, we've been working when you were at Motorola downtown, so it's been like 35 years, I think. We've been working together.
Longer than that.
Let's
not get into
let's not get into that too.
I've known you that long.
Yeah, no.
I think it's going on 50.
Oh my God. But I remember listen, y'all, the history is always great. We would be discussing a petition or something, and we're in the law offices at Keller and Heckman, and we'd be going through all this stuff. And just when I thought we were done, Liz goes, I have something on page 19. So we'd go through that. She goes, well, I have something on page 20. And I go, oh my God.
Somebody's got to do the dirty work.
Somebody's got to do the dirty work. So here's some of the protocols for today's session. We obviously thrilled to have you participate on this webinar. It's being recorded so that folks in your company, if you want to share it or miss this, or you want to re-audit it, you can. It'll be on a website.
Extra credit.
They get extra credit. So you can watch it again. So we can get through a lot of information. The questions will be answered at the end of the session. Please do not be bashful on your questions. There's no right or wrong question, just ask them. I think there's a Q&A box at the bottom of each screen on your screens, and we'll spot those and answer the
Mark
questions.
does not usually spot them, but
Yeah, I'm not very good at that. I thought just as a couple of reminders, EWA was formed back in 2005, a collaboration with AMTA and ITA at the time. And we represent, the reason why we call it the Alliance, our advocacy efforts are on behalf of business enterprises, wireless sales and service providers, private carrier operators, vendors, and manufacturers reps. And that's why we call it an alliance. We always thought there would be, perhaps in the beginning, there might some of these member classifications would be at odds with certain advocacy positions, but it never happened because most of us are, most of the business, we're all sort of on the same wavelength. We need to work together. So there never really has been a lot of conflicts over the years between these member classifications, which is a good thing. You'll hear us refer to often the National Wireless Communications Council. That was formerly the Land Mobile Communications Council, and it's comprised of 17 of the leading industry trade associations representing public safety, business, industrial, and actually the vendors themselves with TIA. We like using NWCC because the commission likes it. And better than getting 17 comments, the NWCC can get together, arrive at an advocacy position, and the FCC knows when we file something or respond to something at the commission, it has the backing of 17 of the leading organizations. So that's why we use NW. You want to add something about the value of NWCC?
No, I mean, it makes it easier for the commission because, and we'll talk maybe about one of these issues today, when they get inconsistent positions from people who have an interest in spectrum, then they've got to sort it out. They'd much rather have us sort it out and give them a unified position. So it's a much more effective way of proceeding.
Sometimes we can sort it out.
Yeah,
sometimes we sort it out and the comments aren't perhaps as aggressive as they might have been otherwise, but still the commission goes, okay, so this must be important to the industry when. So, yeah.
And there's times where like a whole group like public safety could abstain. So it's just the BILT coordinators that are moving forward with a certain initiative. And
yeah, no one says you have, no one said you have to join them. And we have a couple, but we'll talk about today. A segment of the industry goes, I don't want everything to do with that. And we go, okay. And the people that do get together and file joint comments. So it's still a very good process, whether it's all in or not. The other thing I thought would be valuable today, and this is not the complete list, believe me, but you hear us in the regulatory call every other Tuesdays at 11 o'clock and in our newsletters, you
In our
hear us,
conference.
our conference, you hear us use these terms. Public notice, notice of inquiry, petition for rulemaking, notice of proposed rulemaking. We love this one. Further notice of proposed rulemaking as if they didn't quite get the first one right. And then report in order. Then there's memorandum of what there's all kinds. These definitions probably cover 90%
Yeah.
probably what we're doing.
Yeah.
So real briefly, we like public notices when the commission responds to something filed, they put out a public notice. They're sort of like fishing. They want to know, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Should we devote time on it? So they put out public notices, which are sort of, and we can file comments in response to those, correct?
Yeah, I think the commission now puts out public notices
Too many.
on things that I think, who would have an interest in this other than the person who filed it? I mean, nobody else in the world
They
cares.
do seem to issue more
But
public notices these days.
they're
than not.
very careful about making sure that they give people an opportunity to comment. So that's what they do now. They didn't used to do this very
Yeah,
often,
no,
but they do it now.
Robin and Lazar, they put them out for just goofy things, licensing things or,
Right.
and you know what okay, so they do that and it sort of gives them indication should they proceed or not, but it takes time. And, I'm just going to go through, I'm going to spend too much time on this. So say they issue a public notice and they sort of sense this is something we should move forward on, but they're still nervous about how to do it. So they issue a notice of inquiry, which tells people we are interested in this, but we have a lot of questions. And so NOIs are just full of questions.
Right.
It could be hundreds.
Could be hundreds. And depending on, okay, so if they don't have any questions, they'll go straight to a notice of proposed rulemaking.
Which itself will have hundreds of questions.
Which itself will look like an NOI with hundreds.
I don't know how much we've saved, but
So a notice of proposed rulemaking means the commission likes what they're doing, but they're still going to ask a lot of questions. And the regulatory process is moving. If they don't do a notice of proposed rulemaking, organizations like EWA, we file a petition for rulemaking. You have to understand how complicated this gets. We file a petition for rulemaking, you go back to square one. Because the commission will go, well, maybe we need to do a public notice on this, or maybe we need to do a notice of inquiry. So it's sort of like goes back to square one.
And just to add a little bit to that, petition for rulemaking means that we're requesting changes in the FCC rules. This is like the formality that you have to go through is file a petition with those recommendations on what you want to see.
Okay, so when you're all out there in great distance, you go, and why does it take so long? Well, we're not done. They could, if they're really confused and wild through the regulatory process, there's more things they want answers on, and we'll get to it like 4.9. They will do a further notice of proposed rulemaking. And eventually, after this all plays out, assuming it stays out of court, assuming they have an interest in it, eventually they issue a report in order, which says, okay, here are the new rules. I'm just going to add it. Sometimes they do.
Ones that don't have a question in them.
Yeah, sometimes they'll do a report in order and they go, okay, we agreed on that, but we're not completely happy where we are. And they do a further notice. So,
and of course, people then can file petitions for reconsideration of the report in order. Just have to say you made the wrong decision in this area and you need to go back and take another look at it. So, yeah. Rulemaking proceedings.
Do they like petitions for reconsideration? I don't think so. Do they? In our 50 years or 40 years.
It delays their decision.
Have we ever seen a petition for reconsideration? They reverse a decision maybe once or twice?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, so
Not often. Not often.
we work very hard, all those classifications, try to arrive at advocacy decisions and rulemakings that benefit our members and the industry. And, but I thought it'd be good to see why we run into roadblocks and pitfalls. It's this process. So this is going to be around for a long time. So let's get into the issues. You'll notice on the screen, I have little plus marks.
Yeah.
Okay, people, I know Lizzie, what
They're
the
not that
heck, the heck is that? Not that little. We put plus marks on it because we want our members and people that's going to know, why are you doing this? And with a plus, it means this is an effort that will create more opportunities to spectrum that we
Okay.
need.
Right.
So that's actually the majority of our efforts are to expand utilization of the limited spectrum we have for new applications, new technologies, new classes of users. So these are focused on enhancing spectrum and making it available to a wider group. So Robin was,
She's the 800 megahertz.
she
queen.
is the czar of 800 megahertz policies, programs, coordination thing. Why did EWA file this petition?
We filed this petition because as a result of rebanding, which was a 15-year effort, I believe.
Something like that.
Something like that,
Yeah.
15, 16-year effort. The FCC, when they issued the order for the 800 band to be reconfigured, they did not tell Sprint/Nextel that certain classes of licensees had to stay within their eligibility lane, which means BILT didn't have to only stay on BILT frequencies, public safety didn't only have to stay on public safety, and SMR didn't only have to go to SMR. So as a result of that, with the rebanding that was occurring throughout the country over those decade and some, it turned into a melting pot. So there's a lot of licensees, SMR that's on BILT spectrum, public safety that's on SMR, and BILT that's on public safety. It's like all over the place. So now that rebanding is done, EWA thought it was a good idea to file this petition and request the commission change their rules to change it all, the entire band, into general category. Let me back up, not the entire band. NIPSPAC is going to stay isolated to itself, which is the 851 to 854 channels, which is 100% public safety. It's only on the interlead, which starts at 854 all the way up to
Southern.
861. And the only carve out would be in the southeastern part of the United States. There's a certain portion where Southern Company has geographic licenses and it's carved out. So anything below 858.5, we're basically saying should be general category, but anything above 858.5, obviously stay away from in those certain counties within the Southeast that are their territory. So basically asking for all general category pool. And what that is going to help with is currently, anytime that somebody has a BILT license as an example, and they have SMR spectrum on the license and they want to move a site or, if they want to move a site, or even if they want to request new spectrum, they need a waiver because they're not eligible for it. And even though the commission granted them on that spectrum, and I know this one recently that Liz and I were talking about is literally moving it from A to B. We have to look at, from a coordination standpoint, and this is all behind the scenes, we just tell you guys whether it's a yes or a no, and we make it work. But the sausage making part of it is we got to look at Sprint vacated to see if that affects anything. And then we have to advise, you need a waiver of this, you need a waiver of this, to be able to do that relocation, to get it, even if it could be like a 5-mile move, it's minimal.
Okay, so the case you're referring to was I think a utility who wanted to cooperate with the public safety thing, which is good for America.
That's a different
one.
problem.
That's a different
That's
problem.
one.
But
That's a different problem, but the one recently was an airline. And it was, I don't know, Liz, if you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, what's so ridiculous? You not only have to look at the spectrum environment today, you have to go back to, I think the earliest date I saw in the analysis was like 1986. What was that channel? Where did they get that channel?
Oh my God.
I mean, it's like,
And what Liz
like
is getting at
archaeology.
is one of the things that, one of the pieces of criteria that the commission is requesting, so we have to show why you don't have to protect Sprint vacated. And as such, we have to do the history and go into the archives of the license to see if that specific frequency, that SMR channel, was a result of rebanding. So were they moved to that channel in rebanding? Did they already exist during rebanding? Meaning Sprint had to protect them.
Okay.
So if Sprint had to be protected, then the commission will more than likely grant any waiver that you file. We just have
All I'm
to
saying is
do all the
it
homework.
should be a simple step from point A to point B.
Right, right.
But because of the years of this and the FCC, I almost like they like the concept, the confusion. Why, so we filed.
Well, the good news with this part, on the Sprint vacated part, they actually gave us this, what I'll call like a workaround because of their rules. But they see that it's not non-controversial and it makes sense. If Sprint had to protect that frequency back in the day, it never really was Sprint vacated. So it makes it easier for them to be able to approve the application when it comes through. It's a lot of work.
Go ahead.
What kills me is got a licensee who wants to sell a frequency to a co-located system to add a channel to their system. It's not moving at all, but you need a waiver. Because
they're not eligible.
Because they're not eligible for it. I mean, it's.
Okay, do you think the FCC sees the wisdom of this petition, and what do you think the next steps are?
I think they do.
I think they will see the wisdom. I think the next step is they will put out a public notice.
See, one more
Providing
thing.
comment on it. I hope that the public safety folks don't oppose it. They may, because, they're Sprint vacated and, they like having their own frequency pool. So I hope that they don't challenge it. But it's a lot of work to go through the process of changing those rules.
Yeah.
And it's, I just don't know how high a priority it is going to be for them, because in fact, EWA does all the work. They go through the whole analysis and present it to the commission so the commission can see, oh yes, this doesn't need to be protected. This doesn't, so.
But they do.
I know, they double
another one,
check.
They do double check
Right,
it.
right.
And so with this petition, it also alleviates a burden on the FCC staff.
Yeah.
Granted, it is a
Maybe
lot
they
of work
like
to
the
change
burden.
rules.
Maybe they like the burden.
If they do, but
It seems like that sometimes.
sometimes.
Sometimes, I don't think in this case they do. I just think they've got a whole bunch of rules that are old, and, they've acknowledged that.
Right.
So anyway,
They gave us a workaround. We'll just see if they grant applications
and
as a result.
we'll see. They, in a recent call, they did indicate that this petition was going to be put out on public notice. They didn't tell us when, but at least they acknowledged that something was going to happen with it. So,
Right.
we will see.
You
But
want to do a bet whether the public notice is put out this year or next year? I think it'll be this. I think it'll be this year.
I think
I
the
think it'll be
public
this
notice
year.
will be this year.
That'd be good.
Right. The other thing I wanted to add too is that, we know at least one other coordinator that actually wants to support it when the public notice does come out. We haven't heard from anybody else, but we know of at least one, which is good.
One last comment. When we filed this, when I was talking to we were talking to people in the industry. Oh, public safety people be very upset about this. And I go, well, they're upset about a lot of things. I mean, that's not going to stop us from representing our members.
It
I mean-
actually helps public safety too.
But they just
They
have
just
to-
don't
yeah,
see
they have to
that.
see it.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
That's 800 megahertz. Universal Licensing System Accuracy Initiative. So that one has a plus sign too. And this was an offshoot of EWA's Technology Development Task Force. This was a recommendation. And we thought be some procedural changes that would help our members and others in the industry secure access to frequencies that presently they wouldn't be able to because of incorrect license data and channels that are in use but have been inoperable for a long time. There's no process to get it back. So go ahead, Robin, and we met with the FCC a couple of times on this and the industry first. To be clear, we went to the NWCC first and said we'd like to confirm the accuracy of licenses every 5 years, maybe not across the country, but maybe in some of the critical, more congested areas. And if something's inoperable, we need a process in place to terminate those licenses. So we went to NWCC,
Right.
and we need a majority of the NWCC organizations to approve this, and public safety community said, we don't want to be a part of this.
Right.
So this is one of the ones that Robin
Right.
mentioned, we back off. It's not the NWCC But we have friends that will do things jointly with some of the other frequency coordinators that share our view. So,
So it won't have NWCC's name on it,
right.
but it could potentially be
Okay. So
multiple business industrial entities that would file
I
something.
want you two to discuss what the benefits of it are, but we've met a couple times with the commission. And we've met a couple times with the industry. And where are we now?
You know, I think that, as we all know, one of the problems is if you have if you're Verizon and you get a geographic license that's good for, now they're issuing them for 15 years, you're going to be deploying, and there's nothing really to tell the commission. You have a geographic license, you meet your build out, that's the end of their inquiry into your operations until you renew your license. But our licenses, for the most part, are site-based. And often they're held by people who have no idea that they even hold a license, that they don't know that the cell phone they use is not what is represented on that license. And, they move and they consolidate. It's just a totally different environment.
They go out of business and
Yeah.
their licenses stay on the
Right,
ULS.
and the FCC licensing is the last thing on their list of to-dos when those kinds of things happen. And so having 10-year licenses has exacerbated the problem.
Right.
Existed with 5-year licenses, but it's made it even worse. So what we've said to the commission is there are limits to how much authority the FCC can delegate to third parties without going through a huge issue, which would never get there. So I think we're trying to think creatively with them about what they could say that would give EWA and any other coordinator that wants to do this the ability to start contact. I mean, we can contact licensees today and say, gee, are you operating your system? Are you operating all the frequencies? Is that the correct site? But, they say, yeah, well, interesting, but thanks a lot. Don't want to talk to you. We want something that we can say, the commission encourages us to go out and try to confirm the accuracy, because some of you sure have been around long enough to remember that the commission did an audit, 20 years ago, 25 years ago?
Long time ago.
But the problem was they said, is this license operational? And so people said, yeah, I've got 20 frequencies on it and 3 of them are on the air. So yeah, the license is operational. They didn't ask specific enough questions to try to recover any spectrum. And of course, will people lie? Yeah.
Can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But if they would have rephrased how they were asking the question back in the day, down to the frequency level, right?
Well, yeah,
Or site
particularly,
level.
particularly, some licensee who they just want to communicate, they don't have any investment in the spectrum per se. So anyway, we're working with them to prepare an MOU. Mark is taking the lead on this. He volunteered. He's taking the lead on drafting the MOU. And we just have to see how far the commission is willing to go on this. And the other thing is inoperable systems, or systems that either were never constructed, even though construction was certified, or they were constructed, but they've been off the air for more than the permitted 1 year. It's a site-based license. And nobody ever, or almost nobody ever, reports that fact to the FCC, even though they're legally required to. And today, if you want to get the commission to determine that this system, that they can cancel a license because the system has violated the discontinuance of operation rule, they've been off the air for a year, you have to provide them either with a site letter from the site owner who, what do they want to get involved? They're not getting any site rent from this person, or they are getting site rent and they don't want to say that there are fewer frequencies on the air, or you have to monitor 365 consecutive days, 24 hours a day from a site that you can demonstrate.
Which is not realistic.
Which has never happened.
It's never.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's never happened. So we're telling the commission, we'll try to pre-screen people who say, get rid of this license. This hasn't been on the air for years, because we don't want it to become, a competitive issue, which it sometimes can. And as Mark has said, whenever we discuss this is not like finder's preference. You don't get any freebie. You don't get access to any spectrum that is recovered. Although obviously, if you're pursuing it and the license gets canceled, you have advanced knowledge, you can track it. But we want the commission to accept the fact that coordinators will do some due diligence. And we will only refer these to the commission if we have a reasonable
Really good
basis
case.
for believing
Right.
that this is a system that they should investigate. And then the commission conducts its own investigation. They're not going to cancel licenses because we say they should be canceled. They're going to send letters to the licensee and say, hey, this information has come to our attention. Are you really out there? Are you really operating?
And historically, they've done like 2 or 3 letters, like it's not just
Oh, yeah,
one letter,
yeah.
and if they don't get a response,
And
it's
then
like
they
a
say,
few.
and then if you don't respond to this third letter,
Then we're gonna cancel you,
Yeah.
but
We're
it's
gonna
not gonna
cancel
cancel for another 90 days.
we're going to cancel your license. And you know what? In many cases, people just don't respond because they aren't operational. So, they don't want to
Well,
get into a fight with
The
them.
reason why we went to the FCC on this is what we want to be able to do when we contact licensees, even on the every 5 years, and we want to be able to say in these maybe different words, we've been empowered by the Federal Communications Commission to seek this information from you. So that may help 50% of the people that would throw it away otherwise. But
Well, and I think what's helpful too is they also mentioned about potentially putting something on their website
right,
that licensees can refer to see if it's legitimate, right?
So
we're looking
as
forward.
soon as
I
Mark
know.
prepares that
know.
MOU, we'll be.
I have to prepare for this webinar, it took a little time. One more little thing on this. Robin had a conversation with the folks inside the WTB Wireless Telecom Bureau and about the MOU. Was there anything really that would be germane for?
No, I think that, I mean, the biggest thing is that was helpful is that they gave me like a little bit of some of the criteria that they're looking for as it relates to the frequency advisory committees. And I think it's holding them accountable and having each individual that would sign on to it and making sure up front that each of the coordinators know that they're gonna have to sign, like, enter into a memorandum of
Okay.
understanding with the FCC.
With that said, there are 11 coordinators. I don't want, if
Well,
you
we
take out
already
the
know
public
public safety's
safety,
out.
although public safety should do this too,
Oh.
but they can't get one, who am I? So there's 7 business coordinators. Do you think all 7 will put forth the resources and the energy since they're not getting compensation for this?
No.
To pursue? No,
I don't.
that's okay. EWA is perfectly willing to fill the vacuum.
Yeah, although I guess they could all sign the memorandum and then just not do anything. I mean, I don't know how much.
Why they would
permanent
do that.
obligation-
Well, they're
Stuff.
You know, part of it too is like, what does the MOU say?
Right.
You know, so if there's things in the MOU that, certain criteria that's in the MOU that the FCC is gonna hold their feet to the fire.
That-
They want to sign.
They
That's
need-
why I'm so looking forward to seeing this MOU.
I'll get to what they all ought to say. Oh, Crosby wrote it. It's a good document. It wouldn't be anything predatory in
The
there.
good news is that Liz gets to like review it and make
Yeah,
substantial edits if necessary.
Right, I
That's
get
what
it.
we do for-
Yeah, she's very good at
Page 19.
enhancing my stuff. Yeah. page 19.
It's
Uh,
not gonna be that long.
this is this 4.9 is a big thing. Going on since 2007.
So remember in the beginning, when we were talking about decisions with report and orders and further notice where there's lots of questions, you'll see the numbers in front of.
Yeah,
There's been
7
7 report and orders
and 9, they're not
and
quite
9
happy
further
yet.
notices. Right.
And this one, I'm
And the
not, gonna-
latest further notice, what was it, 10 pages of actual questions that were,
Oh, there are
no, more than that.
Yeah,
I'm
some
trying to do
other
the best I can answering
it's
them, and
crazy.
it's a lot, but this is big. Okay, these are one of these bands. The original 50 megahertz came from the feds. And they said, here, public safety, use this 50 meg for whatever, I guess what you wanted to use it for 50 years ago. And then, I'm gonna let you two get into the details. This thing is like, there's a lot of drama about 4.9. Commission says crazy things like, they didn't have to say it, but they said the band is underutilized by public safety. Right, and then what do you think happened to public safety organizations? How dare you accuse us of not using
and they're like, that's
spectacles?
not true.
And then they start throwing rocks at one another and stuff, and then they go, okay, we'll do a 6th report in order and we'll revisit this. But this is big. It has a lot of momentum, I think. But I'll let Robin and Liz get into some of the fun details.
I think one of the things I'd like to mention about it is the fact that the commission repeatedly throughout these 9 further notices, they're recognizing that it's underutilized, it's 50 megahertz, but public safety, I think Liz actually mentioned this on a reg call once. Public safety we've never seen a list produced or data produced by a public safety organization or organizations showing how heavily used it is that they claim that it is. We just hear that they're using it. One of the things that's in this report and order and further notice is they're going to want existing, incumbents to actually like file applications and actually put data into the ULS to show where they're using it as a start. And that's obviously not going to be, it's something that's going to happen anytime soon, but it's something that, it's finally, it's at least a step, because in the past it's been like, oh, we're using it, but there's no proof of it. Now it's going to, once it gets to the ULS, there'll be a starting point at some point.
Was it 2 years ago that the commission said, give it to the states and let them lease everything? That's the chairman. Pie. And of course, the public EWA looks at that. Yeah, that's a good way to get it in place.
Yeah.
But we weren't really aggressive about it. We said it has merit, but the public safety community go, oh, no. We don't have any authority to lease spectrum. We don't know how to charge for it. We don't. And I go, okay, so this is the DOA.
I mean, I have to say, I think doing it on a state by state basis made no sense. If you were still saying that you want public safety to be primary,
right?
If you don't care about that and you just want to throw the spectrum open, then yeah, you can go by state. Even then, it doesn't make any sense, because big commercial networks aren't operated or managed state by state. Anyway, none of it made any sense. Came out of nowhere. Nobody has ever admitted to being the person who came up with that brilliant idea. and the minute Pie left and the Democrats came back and they said, no, we're reversing that. So sometimes they do reverse things, Mark.
But that was a recon internal to the FCC.
No, public safety asked for it.
Did APCO file for it?
Sure, they all asked for it.
Yeah, I said it was a bad idea. Okay, so where are we with this now?
Well,
So they issued a report on the 9th FNPRM. What's in it?
They said, all right, this band has never been managed. It's never been coordinated. It hasn't been licensed. Everybody just got a 50 meg license, and that's the problem. So they've now decided, as Robin was saying, licensees, and it's going to remain dedicated to public safety. They will continue to have primary use of it. They will have to license their facilities, and everything is going to come under the
Auspices.
Yeah, that's probably the word I was going to take control, but I think that's too much of a band manager, a national band manager, who is going to be responsible for developing a band plan and getting all the systems coordinated going forward, and also for leasing or overseeing the leasing of the spectrum to non-public safety entities, all on a preemptible secondary basis. I'm not sure who the commission thinks is going to be leasing the spectrum on a preemptible, not well, I guess it's exclusive until the public safety people show up. I mean, maybe they will, no idea. So the issue now is, and in fact, last summer, EWA and some of the other coordinators, some BILT and some public safety, filed and said, we'd be an excellent band manager. We'll put an organization together collaboratively, and we could be the band manager because we know how to do all this. You're going to have frequency coordination. We know how to do it. So we've been in favor of the band manager for a while. So now we're at a point, so the commission says, okay, got to pick a band manager. So first thing we have to do, we, the FCC, is select the committee that's going to select the band manager. How they're going to do that? Well, we keep asking, they keep saying, we have no idea.
File it in the comments.
Excellent questions. Why don't you raise that in the comments?
I know.
Because one of the complications is the band manager, one of the criteria that they describe is you got to be really tight with public safety, because basically that's who you're working with. Well, if you're going to have that on the band manager side, who's going to be picking the band manager? They say it's going to be a majority public safety representatives and a minority non-public safety. but really the same people who would be selecting the band manager likely would be people who'd be very competent band managers. So we have to sort that out and figure out who's going to be on which side of the fence, because we are operating on a presumption that you can't be on both sides. You can't be on the committee and also be part of a band manager applicant. So
like public safety coordinating committees could be like, put their hat in the ring for band manager. And then,
They can't be on the
there
selection
could be
It's a conflict of interest.
public safety coordinating committees that could be on the selection committee. Do you think it's similar to how they had a sort of selection committee at 800 megahertz with the transition administrator?
kind of, but I really think it's very different, because that band manager wasn't doing a band plan. They weren't doing any of that stuff. They were just managing the economics of the process, basically.
Right.
So they didn't have to have that expertise. I think this is more, and the other times that they've done it, band clearing, they were just doing that. This band manager is going to have a much more active role, and I just think it's more complicated. I mean, they'll sort it out. And
You know what hasn't been sorted out? The economics of being a band manager.
yeah,
I mean, you're not gonna go, I'm here, I'm ready, here are my papers. I'm a band manager, let me go. No. There's infrastructure, there's computer, there.
well, and it's not clear. I mean, the commission doesn't have some slush fund where they can say, okay, here's a couple $1 million to get started. And
Okay, so how's the band manager going to be funded?
the assumption is
Right.
really it's going to come from the lease fees. And I think many of us have questions, but
And maybe coordination fees,
in coordination fees.
maybe coordination fees.
Yes, there will be coordination fees.
That's
Can't
that,
bank on leasing fees because, I mean, like we've already talked about, like what big business enterprise is gonna wanna lease spectrum from a public
And the
safety
lease says-
organization when it says that it's secondary? Who's gonna wanna spend
You know,
millions of dollars?
the devil's in the details, and
Right.
I think that's a bad proposal.
Sure.
You can imagine putting in a lease agreement, the public safety people near you or out to you have the right to come in and say, we're absconding with your use of the spectrum. And the guys who's there say, but I signed a lease, I invested in equipment. Are you going to reimburse me for those investments? I doubt it. I doubt it. So this is sort of goofy, and we'll see what happens. That said, this is of extreme interest to EWA. Our little coalition that was formed last year is still
Still
active.
intact.
No one has
And
to
meeting.
stay.
Right.
No one has to stay, right, in the little
And
coalition.
we're open to additional organizations.
Yes and no.
participate.
Depending on who's going
Depending-
to be on the selection
Depending on who
committee.
they are, 'cause if they go-
It's like-
listen,
Fiat.
what Liz's point is, we want to be in your coalition. The question is, do you want to be on the selection committee?
Yeah,
Yes, we go, pick one.
Yeah.
Can't be both.
well, not only
Which
that,
side of the fence? do you
we
believe?
want the right people on
Right.
the selection committee.
Well, yeah, I know.
That's
but-
very
Yeah,
strategic.
very strategic, very strategic. So 4.9 is big for EWA, the industry, public safety people, business industrial folks.
And let me add one thing.
Yes,
There has been significant interest in 4.9 by some utilities and some other private enterprise for drones. Now, drones aren't authorized at 4.9, and there are lots of challenges to getting them approved at 4.9. But I think leasing spectrum to operate drones would be a much more manageable proposition than terrestrial use. I think there would be a way you could coordinate that.
got to define the geography. So the drone, you can't go past that block.
Well,
You got to define the geography.
well, the geography and the temporal aspects too, when, but
Yeah,
I think that's an area that has been of great interest, and the commission, which in the eighth further notice of proposed rulemaking said no aeronautical use, because the radio astronomy people who are next to it are concerned.
one
about
of
it.
those things collapsed to the
The
ground.
ninth further note, well, that's out of Puerto Rico.
Oh,
The ninth further notice, they've said, well, with the band manager, maybe we could have aeronautical use, maybe
we'll
even
see.
manned, maybe even unmanned. So
We
we'll
will
see. But that,
see.
we know that is of interest to some of our members, so we will focus on
We're
that.
working
So
on
it's
it.
something that EWA is very active in, and we'll keep you apprised as we.
It has a
As we
plus,
learn more.
it has a plus sign on the screen because so far, non-public safety entities have had little success secondary bases or primary bases getting access to this band. So.
Right.
Listen, we're not going to be greedy. We have to, we understand this is a public safety centric band. We're not going to be greedy. However, any little inkling of potential success or access by our members is a good thing.
Right.
All right, let's go to another one, talking about people throwing stones at one another.
Yeah.
Those are the things, listen. Every other day, Liz sends us another thing where the unlicensed people go, you guys are idiots, your testing, our testing was perfect, there's no chance of interference to microwave thing. And the other people that have, the incumbents going, we've done real world testing and our link is down when you guys go around, you know.
Yeah.
So they just keep lobbing
Comments filed
technical.
every day or
Yeah.
every
Just about.
day.
I mean, these are formidable
Just about,
people.
Yeah,
Right.
And so the commission sitting there probably, I can see Rick Kelts now, he's like this.
Why did I ever come back to the
Why
FCC?
why did we get this thing again? So, ladies,
The reality is the ship has left the harbor.
It has.
right,
I mean, the unlicensed, low power unlicensed devices are being sold as we speak. I keep saying, I hope the commission is right. I hope all those horrible people supporting the unlicensed proponents are right, because they're going to be out there. And we're trying to salvage as much as we can from this. And some of it is, you know, if they would, not that this would solve the problem, but make it easier. If the unlicensed devices were tethered to these AFCs that are supposed to be assigning frequencies, that are looking at the database and figuring out who can use spectrum where, that would help. It would help if there was some process in place for when you experience interference. What do you do about it? Who do you report it to? How do you,
How
what
do you
type
get
of
reimbursed?
information? Yeah, there's no cost recovery in there. And for those who spend time on ULS, you would enjoy a recent filing from somebody who's on the unlicensed side and wants to be an AFC and said, you know what? We've been looking at the ULS and it's going to be really hard to protect these systems because ULS is down so much and you give us corrupt data. And yeah, you
How
just
can you
noticed
protect
that.
Yeah,
people
like we
when
get it.
Right.
the source of the information of ULS and the ULS data is corrupt?
Yeah.
So the whole interference mitigation protect stuff is based in ULS, and it's like going down the road at 90 miles an hour, 3 tires. I mean, it's just
I will
crazy.
note that we have been encouraging, as has the FCC, for everybody that is licensed at 6
That's a
gig
good point.
to make sure that their licenses are up to date and accurate
Right.
for protection purposes. However, I understand the ULS pains. You know, a lot of you see, you know, a lot of times EWA has to put a banner across our website about things being down just
Right.
because, you know, the data was corrupt that the FCC puts out there for download. And that's what this filing that Liz was talking about.
It's just
that
nice
this
to hear
other
somebody else
entity-
complaining
It was just
about it.
somebody else complaining about it other than EWA.
Right. And the other thing that EWA has been telling people is you really need to do some baselining
Right.
of your current system so that,
If and when.
yeah, if and when there's interference, because it's, you know, I think we all understand, and if David Reeves is on this call, he certainly understands. There's a cumulative impact as more and more of the devices are out there.
The noise floor goes up.
Yeah, well, it's
Well,
not just a noise floor. I mean, it's that they actually cause interference. So,
And it's gonna be hard
You
to
know?
find out who's actually causing the interference when it happens, right?
well, when they're unlicensed and they're not tethered to
Right.
anything,
There's
I don't
no
know how the
way.
heck, and some of them are going to be moving. So I
Right.
say, well, good luck.
Yeah, but the people that did this decision are happy.
Yeah.
Look what we did. We got really good press in the Times and the Post. We added a whole bunch of spectrum for broadband purposes, and now we're ahead of the Far East countries.
And there are entities that are, like Mark was talking about, that are starting to do some like real world testing,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, I give a lot of credit to,
So
in particularly Southern
Southern,
and now First Energy and EEI. I mean,
EEI.
and they have really done, I mean, I don't know how much they've had to invest in doing the kinds of real world testing that they have done, but it has to be a significant effort. And I think some of that is making an impression on the FCC, but what will come of it, I have no idea.
right?
But it's,
we'll
it's
keep you
definitely,
posted.
yeah, it's a challenging situation. Look at 11 gig. That's my advice.
Yeah.
This is going to be the rapid round. All
Oh,
right, because we want to make sure I want to make sure we have time for questions.
Wait, have we been talking too long?
Well, no, but this is the rapid round, like Kornheiser and the other guy, they go through it. So these are important things, but
You take the first one.
you take the first one. Split vacated database. Where are we with that? How's that?
Nowhere. So it's corrupt. They've done duplicate releases, which you've heard us talk probably ad nauseum on all the reg calls, and the commission is not about to fix it. However, they have given us a recent workaround that we still have to prove, show that they're going to grant certain things, but they basically said if we disclose when the spectrum was released, each of the different dates in an exhibit and prove to them that it was.
That they're the encumbrance, right?
Yeah, right, but they are not going to act on our petition for correction with duplicate release dates.
Why do we have assignments and transfer and controls?
Why do we have that on there?
Yes,
Because
why?
EWA gets, and I know Liz does too, gets a lot of phone calls from folks, unfortunately, after the fact. What I mean by that is the FCC requires approval when you assign a license from one company to another, or you transfer control, which means that you bought a company, you actually have to get prior FCC approval to be able to.
Before you consummate the deal?
Before you consummate the
Yes.
deal.
Yes.
And a lot of people do not know those rules. And we find, they call us after the fact and we have to, that's whenever I enlist Liz to help them get out of it.
Yeah, and the commission takes it,
Take no prisoners?
well, they take it more seriously than I think they should. But to me, the great irony is, I think assignments, people kind of understand that because, it's going from this name to this name, and they've kind of recognized that there'd be a different name on the license. But transfers of control and ownership of a company changes, even pro forma, even when
If it's
the ultimate controlling entity remains the same, but there, some sub gets stuck in the middle. That requires prior approval.
Right.
And I say, the commission never asked who owned the company when you got the license. So why would people think you have to get
Right.
their approval to change the ownership?
And their latest thing is that they're actually using Google to actually research specific company names because we've seen like returns and pushback and things like that. So
So-
obviously the more public the company, the more
Right, and the bigger fines they get.
Exactly.
If they.
So I just wanted to make sure we brought that up
Right.
just because we've been getting.
Well, but there's a petition pending.
Right.
And it was filed 3 years ago, and it was filed by AT&T, well, really by the cellular folks. And, they've said they have certain instances when they can file within 30 days after the fact, but even that I think is a challenge, but better than having to get prior approval. And they're asking for changes in all those rules to get rid of pro forma obligations at all. If it's an internal reorganization within a company, what the heck does the FCC
Right.
care? And we have filed, or I think the NWCC, it was the NWCC filed saying,
Yes. We
Yeah,
got through.
yeah, and
We agree.
we have to do it in advance. You guys at least get to do it 30 days after the fact. We have to get it in advance. And so we're hoping that the commission, AT&T has now tried to resurrect this issue, and we've filed in support of that. And it would be great if the commission could get rid of this. It's just ridiculous.
Got different bad rule. T-band petition for rulemaking. Our good friend Ralph Haller saw this, and I'm going to get to the chase. So a T-band, which now is all unfettered, which is good that there's TV stations that are there that we have to protect, correct? They're contours, right? Or they're service areas. And correct me if I'm wrong, we are being forced, well, not being forced. The rule is you got to protect their analog grade B contour. We're sitting there, but none of them are operating analog stations
They're not
anymore.
permitted to.
They're operating digital, and digital is a smaller area, which gives us the opportunity to make better use of T-band. And of course, we filed this how long ago? 2 months, 2 years ago or something?
At least, yeah,
This is way too confusing for the folks in the media bureau. But anyway, what's the prognosis on?
Well, we were told, I mean, to me, this is such a no-brainer. I mean, everybody understands that all television stations are operating in digital format these days. And the change is to recognize that. And it's not a huge change. It's really just a cleanup of the rules. And what we were told was Well, if you want this to move forward, you're going to have to talk to the chairwoman's office. I think, doesn't the chairwoman have better things to do than to spend her time on kind of a no-brainer here? But we'll talk to the chairwoman's office and
So
tell
the
them.
bureau's not doing anything with it until they're basically told to.
Well, we have.
Well, they can't.
Well, right.
We have to
So we
go
have to go to the
we have
chairwoman
to go
to
to Rosenworfel's
make our
office
pitch.
Right.
and, you know, don't get me
Waste
started.
her, not, we
Well,
won't be meeting with her, but her
Right.
legal advisor.
I mean, it's just
Waste their
interesting.
time.
Well,
Just
after we,
interesting to me that something like this would get the attention of that. office.
Agreed. Yeah.
as soon as we leave that office, they'll go, who are these people? and What do they want? And what? Right, so.
They're not broadcasters.
They're
are
not
they?
broadcasting. All right, here's another. Robin, 900 megahertz broadband transition, doing well these days, I hear.
It is. Last report that I'm aware of is that it's about 65% done throughout
Yes.
the country.
Yep.
Great,
Good.
which is great news.
Wow.
And from what I understand, not major hiccups. It's been going very smoothly, which is great. And I know a lot of our members have been helping licensees with those.
Helping them, working with
those-
Anterix, yep,
Correct.
it's all good. And you know what, I've stopped getting calls. I used to, when this all started, I'd get calls going,
Yeah.
what is this and why do I gotta do it? And I go, hey, this is good for you, it's good for the
Well,
industry.
I think the good news with that is that, a lot of education on the
Yeah.
front end and
Yeah.
continued education and everybody getting a little bit more comfortable with it, which is good.
Yeah, we're doing.
Well, and we don't have a transition administrator. So
Exactly.
it isn't, you've got to show me down to the last nickel what this is going to cost you. I mean,
It's all good.
that's why it took 15 years.
Yeah, it's
Agreed,
all good.
agreed.
Primary channel concurrence requirement. Okay, so this one could do 3 slides. We just did 1 line on it. You want me, why don't you do this with Liz? Because I might say something I regret.
So Mark, EWA really doesn't like when the radio services were consolidated into pools right around the time of the Civil War.
This is UHF and VHF, by the way.
UHF and
Yeah.
VHF, the commission decided at the request of certain coordinators that some frequencies should require the concurrence of that coordinator if they're going to be used by someone other than an eligible entity, or even if they're coordinated by some, even if they're eligible, but coordinated, for example, EWA has a utility, they have to get concurrence from UTC on certain frequencies, even though the utility is eligible, but because they've come to EWA, even though the part of the objective of pool consolidation was to encourage competitive frequency coordination.
Sounds like restraint of trade to me, but,
But when approved by the federal government, I don't think. they're
yeah, I
qualified.
know.
So, I mean, it's just been going on for years and we're going
We
to,
went round and round for a few weeks. I
Yeah.
think the 3 of us are finally on the same page,
I'm close.
which is good.
I'm
Which
close.
is good.
Close.
And we're going to file and say, this just doesn't make any sense anymore. It's not needed. It's just another fee that people have to pay because there's always a fee for getting concurrence. And it's not even a big enough fee to make a heck of a lot of difference to any of the organizations that are getting it, I don't think. But it's just.
I think for the most part, yeah, it's 75, it's like $75 or something, or something along those lines.
Just a process.
But
And
it's
not.
We're already
contentious.
running the analysis and we
Right.
already know whether it's gonna work or it's not gonna work.
Right.
So why should we have to, on behalf of the applicant, pay a concurrence fee when we know whether it should be blessed or not?
So,
Well, yeah, so there's some very good examples. Stay tuned for this one. We need to, we're not gonna file it immediately. We have to do a little bit more conversation with some people in the industry. But I think we'll file this,
Just a little bit more research.
a little more research and but to me, this is a no-brainer, right? We gotta file this and under the right terms and conditions, it should be good for everybody in the industry. And it ain't the $75. At the end of the day is why do we, this is taking spectrum off the table and that shouldn't be taken off the table. If some of these coordinators came back to us and said, but the $75 is important, I'd go, how big a check?
How big of a check do you
How
want us
big
to
a check
write?
do we have to write you so you'll leave us alone? Right? Because it's stupid.
Right.
Right. Anyway, so that's something that pay attention to that. You can see Liz. I don't know why Mark and Robin want to pursue it. Well, I'll tell you why, because it's a stupid rule and needs to change.
I say, why this stupid rule? There's so many of them.
So
There's a lot of them.
we're doing well.
We have to pick our poison.
We got 4 minutes. So Liz, you have 1 minute to
1
talk
minute.
about geographic license build out private
Okay,
system.
we said from the beginning, the commission imposes build-out requirements on geographic licensees that are all designed for commercial, consumer-oriented systems. It's all based on covering a certain amount of the population, or in a couple of cases, you have an option of covering geography, which has nothing to do with the operating requirements of private systems that acquire geographic spectrum, either in an auction or in the aftermarket. And we raised this, we and a couple of other organizations raised this with the commission maybe 3 years ago now. And the commission has actually put out a notice of proposed rulemaking, and they've proposed some build out options for private systems that we think make a lot of sense. You know, it's not as though private systems are going to be participating in a significant number of auctions or going to be buying spectrum every day in the aftermarket. But when they do, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to have a build out requirement that's designed for a consumer-based service. So we've supported it. I think everybody pretty much has supported it. And now we just have to get permission to actually adopt it. Right.
Awesome. Well done. Do we have any questions, Eric? No questions.
No questions.
We must have done such a great
I
job
guess.
clearing this out.
Well, if you do have questions, you
I
know
do
how
have
to
good-
find us.
Yeah, send them to Robin. No.
The good part about you being chief strategy officer is I can actually delegate it to
Yeah,
you.
you're good. Robin and Liz, thank you. I hope this was helpful and informative for all of you that participated today. We love working for you. So thanks again for being with us.
Actually,
Take
Mark,
care.
interrupt
Oh.
real quick. We do
I'm
have
sorry. Go
one
ahead.
question, actually.
Yes.
Someone wants to know, ever to work with the FCC and EWA for offshore licenses in the exclusive economic zone. They've been advised to use EWA as the official quote unquote lobbyist for the industry. And they want to know, is EWA an official lobbyist?
The lobbyist. So we official lobbyists? No,
No.
we are not an official lobbyist. I was many years ago. The lobbying rules to be certified are, you think getting sprint vacated and rebanning is easy. It's a very hard requirement to meet and to maintain. And we stopped it because if you're in the business 100% of the time, knocking on doors in the senator's offices or congressmen and committees, yeah, you need it. But we don't spend enough time up there.
Right. I mean, it's a how much of your time is devoted to that,
Right.
and EWA has never met that criteria.
Right.
Yeah, it's so, no, we're not registered lobbyists. Negative.
Tim, do we have another question?
I believe that is all we have, unless we have any other last takers.
Okay, did Jeff Kofsky
Looks like
ask a
Jeff
question about a
Stokowski
lobbyist?
raised his hand.
Who did it?
You want to know if we were a lobbyist? Okay,
Oh, maybe.
No, we're good.
all right.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everybody.